Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Srizabasti with CinemAddicts. For this version of the Hodgepod, this week's version, that is, we have an interview. Actually, Eric has an interview. He interviewed Lara St. She is a violinist, acclaimed violinist turned filmmaker, and she has a very deeply personal documentary called Dear Lara. This documentary makes its premiere at this week, actually, on Friday, February 6th at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. There will be links in our show notes for information on that. And I will read the actual press release from the publicist who's representing this. So apologies if it sounds like I'm reading in a few moments. It's because I am. So the world premiere of Dear Lara will be directly followed by a panel Q&A with filmmaker St. John and many of the featured documentary subjects in the film. St. John has performed and recorded internationally with orchestras including the Cleveland Orchestra, Philadelphia Orchestra, San Francisco Symphony, and the Royal Philharmonic. Her interviews has been featured in People, U.S. News and World Report, NPR's All Things Considered, BBC, CBC, and CNN. The documentary, which is shot by St. John and Patrick Ham, is also produced by Patrick Ham. The narrative starts in 2019 when St. John spoke about the sexual assault she endured as a 14-year-old student at the elite Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. After the story was published in the Philadelphia Inquirer, she was flooded with letters and outreach from fellow survivors. Determined to make these voices heard, St. John traveled across North America and Europe to meet others who, like her, were failed by the very organizations meant to protect them. As these personal accounts accumulate, a pattern emerges of institutions shielding predators at the expense of the vulnerable. Blending unflinching testimony, investigative rigor, and a haunting original score, the film exposes ingrained practices of harm and cover-ups rooted in power, silence, and the worship of reputation over justice. The documentary film subjects include Robbie Brown, Lisa Marie Vanna, violinists Masha von Sloten and Zenaba Bowers, acclaimed oboist Catherine Needleman, and double bassist Heather Bird, along with opera singer Samuel Schultz and a litany of others, a whole bunch of others. And that is my reading of Dear Lara, which makes its premiere at the SBIFF, aka Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Going to Eric's interview, he has a very interesting question about just with this abuse and the trauma that's inflicted on these children by people in power in these institutions. Like I said, the institutional complicity, actually Lara St. said that, but borrowing her phrase, there's a question that Eric asks about the talent drain from these situations. Obviously, they're traumatic. It's a human element first, but one can imagine all that talent and art that is lost to the world by these people inflicting abuse on helpless and scared individuals. Yeah, impressionable. And I have not seen the documentary. You can sense from Eric, obviously, he's frustrated with a lot of the topics that show up in the documentary. And it's, as he says towards the closing, it's a documentary that should be seen. And yeah, hopefully this week it premieres again on February 6th. I'll get a chance to check out the documentary as well. I've never been to the SBIFF. Would love to go one day when I leave the house, but you'll have more insights on Dear Lara in a few seconds when Eric interviews Lara St. It's about close to 28-minute interview. So you'll get more information on that. Again, all of the stuff regarding Dear Lara, its official website, where to get tickets will be in the show notes. And I'm going to post this up immediately. This is Tuesday, February 3rd. It's not going to be completely edited. So I just wanted to post it up as soon as possible for you guys to listen to Lara. And after Dear Lara, if you want to stay for the rest of the episode, I will have a very quick mini review of this movie called Diabolic. And it's a horror movie that comes out in theaters February 13th. The reason why I'm going to do a mini review is there's just a lot of stuff that we're covering this week on CinemAddicts, and I wanted to get this review out front and center for you guys for this specific Hodgepod. All right, enough of me. Here is Eric's interview with Lara St. John, and then stay tuned after that and hear my review of Diabolic. I'm not going to edit all of these mistakes that I made in the intro, and I apologize for all my stutterings and whatnot, but check out this interview and then check out Diabolic. Thank you guys so much for supporting us here on CinemAddicts. Take care, guys.
But I'm here with the Lara St. John, one of the subjects, and the director of Dear Lara. Yeah, where to start? There's so much. First of all, the documentary, like, you're completely open about everything. So I was watching the documentary. I'm like, what the hell am I going to ask Lara? Because you bring up everything in the documentary. I almost feel that we should just play the documentary in lieu of the interview. But I guess what kind of got the ball rolling on this documentary, as far as like gathering all the information and all the sound bites and everything, putting all this together?
I guess the inkling first happened. I came out publicly about what happened to me as a child in 2019 in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I was definitely not prepared for the amount of people that would get in touch. I mean, I thought, oh, I'll probably hear from a couple folks or something like that. I had no idea it was going to be around the world and in the hundreds. And these folks were all very, first of all, grateful. Thank you for telling your story. And some of them said it makes me feel like I'm able to tell mine now. And so that was obviously for me a big moment, because that's why I did that in the Philadelphia Inquirer, was to help people and to try to make sure this never happens again. And I mean, some of them I just thought, this has to be heard. And that's when I thought, I know it's not the same thing, but I've been editing my own music videos for about 17 years. And partly because of the fact that I was just so angry that nobody could ever seem to synchronize the violin properly. So I thought, like, if I want it done right, I should do it myself. So I taught myself editing. And I thought, oh, you know what? How about film? Why don't I just grab a camera and go talk to some of these people? And that's how it began, was literally me with a little tripod, a little camera, and just plunking it there and speaking to people.
Nice.
And I think it was, my original thoughts were, this way they can just talk to me, to somebody whose story they already know. And there's not going to be like some weird studio with a cameraman there and a lighting guy over here. And I think that I was able, because of that, to get some really heartfelt testimonials out of the subjects of this film.
Yeah. One of the things that gets brought up in the documentary is the statute of limitations. And you illustrate that perfectly, of a child being abused, and they would have had to find a lawyer and get the ball rolling by the time they're 8 years old, and who's going to do that? But then I started thinking, the longer time goes, the harder it is to prosecute, because the evidence goes away. Like, ideally, you get abused, you get a rape kit right away, and then things are easier. I wouldn't say easy, but easier. But I don't even know if you know the answer to this, but for someone that's been abused a long time ago, what's some evidence or information or stuff that they can bring to the table that they might not be aware of that will help them in their prosecution, I guess?
The big problem with child abuse is the complete debilitation of the victim. Because as a child, generally, they're also threatened, like, by, if you tell anybody this, I'll make sure you're fit. I mean, there's so many threats that are given to children. And so therefore, they just have no idea. I had no idea what to do. So I'm thinking of myself as a 14-year-old, and I was just absolutely broken and debilitated, and I would have not known what to do. But the problem was, and the reason it did come up, was because I had to keep spending an hour a week alone with my rapist. And finally, my friends, as I talked about it in the film, went with me, and at least let's make sure that my teacher gets changed so I don't have to do that anymore, because I knew I was just not going to survive another even couple of months. And the dean at the time laughed at me, basically. But I did do that. And I went in, and those two people that were with me were witnesses to the Philadelphia Inquirer article. A lot of times people will have evidence that they don't think of from way back then. Oh, this happened and I told this person this, and there'll be that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, obviously for me, my abuser died happily in his own bed, and he kept teaching for 11 years after he raped me. And I happened to know, because so many people reached out, that he had been doing this since the 1950s.
Yeah, they tend to make a career out of that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And because they know that the children are unable to do anything, so they just keep on doing it. You saw that in Spotlight, the film in 2012 with the Catholic Church. And you see it constantly about decades and decades of the same person because they know that the children are powerless.
One of the things that you bring up that was infuriating to watch was, I forget the guy's name, but he admits to it, and then they still hire him on to other places. So it's not even hearsay. Maybe it is. He said, she says, no, he did it. He admitted to it, and you hired him. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch of those in the film, but I think you're thinking of Duncan McTeer, who literally was unable to teach in the US, and he was put on a predators list. But yeah, he kept on teaching in Switzerland and Spain.
It's like maybe like what do you call it? Like your talent level exceeds what will allow morally. Like for instance, a football player, let's say, if you're on the bench and you do something like you smoke weed, you're out. But if you're a star player and you beat your wife, maybe we'll make you not play a game or something.
Nail on the head right there. Yeah. Like a lot of times people will say, oh, because of the artistry. It's as though because you're pretty good at playing a wardrobe with strings on it, you should be given a free pass to do whatever you want to ruin children's lives. I mean, it's just when you put it that way, it is so ridiculous. But that is precisely what's been happening in classical music all these years, that these men are given literally a messianic amount of power, and women and occasionally men.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's like, there are how many people on the planet? 8 billion people. You can't find someone that can teach playing a wardrobe with strings that didn't rape anyone, or at the very least didn't say, yeah, I did it.
Do you know how many times I've asked that of institutions? Yeah, and been just incredulous at their pretzel way of, it wasn't proven, or it wasn't this, or she was overage, or I mean, they'll give these men these excuses. And that's another thing that I really want this film to get out there, is the institutional complicity in all of it, the complicity machine. I mean, these men wouldn't be allowed to keep doing this if the institutions didn't keep on hiding it. And that's why at one point I say everybody knew, because everybody did know. Everybody does know in the world of classical music how sordid it is. And that's the reason for this film, because I want the greater public to know now too, because that's the only way it's going to get cleaned up. Only way.
Yeah, the weird thing is it's kind of like the Weinstein thing. Harvey Weinstein, like everybody knew about it, and it wasn't until he actually got caught where it was like, oh yeah, screw him. It was like, oh, you knew about it. You were working with him for quite a while. Like maybe slow your roll a bit.
You see it a little bit in what happened last week too. With, I mean, I guess if you're in the bigger world, not so much classical music, if you're rich enough, then you can get away with anything, apparently.
Yeah, there's a moral for life. Be rich, and you can abuse. Oh, geez, this is depressing.
This is depressing, but this is what I made this film. This is what we're going to stop. And I may not be able to change the world at large, but I certainly can make change in my world, because it's very small in classical music. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
What's some release plans on this? Because I know it's playing at a film festival on February 6th.
Yes, that's world premiere.
Yeah, but this is, I know I'd like to get a couple DVDs of this, and I got a couple people I need to send to this, go, hey, watch this. I'm keeping my eye on you.
So there's a lot happening behind the scenes for eventual kind of release and this and that. But of course, as I'm sure you can't do a whole lot before world premiere. That's a big one this weekend. It's February 6th at 5:20, Santa Barbara Fiesta Theater. Santa Barbara International Film Festival is giving us our world premiere. And there are two more screenings as well, one on Sunday at 3:00. We do have a little competition Sunday at 3:00 Pacific time, because it's also the Super Bowl, but
who's going to watch that?
There's one Monday morning at 8:20. So it'll screen 3 times there, which is awesome. And and then after that, lots of things in the works.
And so I know that it hasn't premiered yet, but I'm sure some people have seen it. What's been the response like for you so far?
Response has been for people in classical music, like, oh, thank God. No, oh, thank God you've made this. I'm so glad this is finally coming to the fore. For people outside of it, it's been like, oh my God, I had no idea this was happening. I thought it was all just people prancing around with cute little instruments and playing nice tunes. Okay, nobody actually said that. I paraphrase. But so those have been the reactions so far. And what I'm really happy about is overwhelmingly people are like, what can I do? what can I do to help? What can I do to stop this? And that's the reaction I need, because what I need is more allies, more supporters, more people who are just going to say, enough already.
Yeah. Another thing you bring up in the documentary that kind of got me pretty sad. A lot of this got me sad and angry and all that, but like the loss of art. And seems like it, and we get to hear you play in the documentary, and you're a fantastic musician. That could just all went away. And for some people it did. And that's
for a lot of people it did. Yeah. I mean, I do talk about the brain drain. An inordinate amount of women have simply been abused out of the field. Because in music, you're asked to go into your lesson and be vulnerable. That's what art is. And there are these people that take advantage of that and therefore ruin the art for so many women and ruin what they loved so much, some of who have devoted their entire young lives to it. It was ruined. And out of the hundreds and hundreds who wrote to me, I would say at least half, probably more, no longer play their instruments or sing. And a lot of them can't even listen to music anymore. So to me, that's really evil, to take away something that someone loves so much. And you get these, well, fart knockers, I guess I'll say, who say, where are the women? They need to step up and this kind of thing. And it's like the women in music have to navigate like this incredibly treacherous road. And it's not easy to get an education when there's so much predation. And especially it's a profession which necessarily, in most instruments, you have to start very young. I was 2.5 when I began. And you put that together with these ridiculous amounts of power that some men are given, and they abuse that power and treat women and students and children like some sort of perk of the job. And the damage that it does is extraordinary.
You think of with the whole art angle, you think of all the great musicians that you love and admire, and then how many of them that you would have loved and admired but just gave it up because of this. It's like imagine the greatest piece of art, someone abuses that person, that art is just gone from history.
That art, and also that brain that might have been 20th century's most incredible composer was just lost. And there's so much to be gained from this not happening. And it's beneficial for all to get rid of child abuse. I mean, I know that's like so obvious statement, but it's just not said enough. And there's all sorts of things that need to, like, I mean, as you probably saw in the film, like, it's not just about making a documentary. It's about getting that documentary to schools. It's about raising the statute of limitations in states like Pennsylvania, where it's primeval. It's about making sure that these schools have a standard that they have to live up to, so that this doesn't become generation after generation of women who are, for lack of a better word, expelled from the profession.
Yeah. Maybe it's too early, but have you ran into any issues as far as, because you call people out in this, and rightfully, but typically like with stuff like this, lawyers will look at that and go, oh, you got to say this or do that or present it this way. Have you ran into anything like that?
Not yet, but we did have months and months of work with a fair use lawyer and a privacy lawyer. And you have to have that signed off on for insurance, or else nobody will show the film. I mean, I think it's possible. Anybody can sue anybody in this country for anything. I mean, yeah. I could sue you for wearing a black sweater. I'm not going to win, but I can still do it. So it might happen, but the fear of that is not going to keep me from getting this out there.
Yeah. And I suppose if they say that's like the Streisand effect. It's, oh, now even more people know that I'm a fart knocker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it would just make any of these schools or any of these people that I do mention in the film, I think it would put them in a much worse light if they did such a thing. And so you never know, but I hope it's not going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah. You do the music, sorry, or play the music in this. And I'm not real familiar with, I'm more of a metalhead, so I'm not too familiar with the classic music. If you played Slayer, I'd know all the tunes. But the songs that you play, are those songs that you've written, or are those like older, like Tchaikovsky songs or whatever? Or?
So it depends. I mean, in a lot of it, in the very beginning, it's archival recordings of my brother and myself when we were like 4 and 6. and myself when I was 14 and stuff like that. So those are not written by me, obviously. And later on in the film, when we have the orchestral situation, I used Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, for example, and I used some recordings of other composers. But generally, yes, I would say 70% of all the music you hear was written by me or arranged by me. Excellent. And also played by me.
Excellent. And I guess this might be more of a pitch than a question, but there's plenty of people that within the classical music space that has been abused. Any thoughts on getting them together as a band and starting your own orchestra and touring in response to this?
Gosh, I mean, even it would be a weird group, even just the people in my film, like you got oboe and a couple violins, a piano. And I don't think there's anything written for that, but I don't know. We definitely sort of have a lot of us are in touch with each other. I've stayed in touch with almost everybody who's ever reached out to me. I mean, it's something I spend a lot of time doing. And I try to keep them abreast of anything that's happening. Oh, this article just came out about this. So we all let each other know about anything, any change that's happening, for example. So in a way, that's like a band. We just don't play music together.
Yeah. And also, what are some kind of discoveries that you made while making this documentary? Because obviously there's certain things that like ahead of time, yeah, I'm going to come across this. I'm probably going to hear this. But is there anything where it's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I didn't expect to stumble upon this.
I originally thought that my school, on my former school, the Curtis Institute, I thought they were just particularly awful in the way that they treated me, and that they were probably the only school that was so awful. And I found out, oh no, they're all like that. So to me, that was surprising. I mean, obviously horrifying as well, but quite surprising. And I had no idea of I think I said this before, but the institutional complicity. The breadth of it and the fact that it's global. It's everywhere like this. In any place that has a music school or an orchestra, there's this preposterous hierarchy and this ridiculous way of trying to protect the famous man at the expense of women and children and students.
Right. I wonder if there's a way, because they talk about extending the statute of limitations, but I wonder if there's something to be done about, look, if there's a fugitive and I'm hiding them in my house, I'm now an accomplice. If there's a rapist going around abusing their students and now they're at my school, would I not be an accomplice to that?
I think the schools are definitely accomplices. Yes.
But not legally. That's what I'm saying.
It depends. It depends in what state.
That's the thing in certain states?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's pretty complicated, but yeah. So for example, I think Delaware did away with statute of limitations backwards and forwards quite recently. I know this from Child USA because that's their thing at statute of limitation reform. And as Marcy says in the film, there's no statute of limitations on murder because you need to know what happened and you need to find that person so it doesn't happen again. And our position is that there should not be a statute of limitations on child abuse either, because it's akin to murder because of how debilitated the victim is. And the fact that there are statutes of limitations it's ridiculous, actually. You know, also the fact that there are NDAs for this kind of thing. As you mentioned, the Weinstein thing a while ago. I mean, what is it? Was it Lionsgate? No, what did they have? The Weinstein.
Miramax.
Miramax, yeah. Miramax would just pay these people off and say, okay, here's a bunch of money. You can't say anything. And they did that over and over and over again. And NDAs were not meant for that. They were meant to protect businesses.
Yeah, and it's also not legally binding. If someone abuses you and you sign an NDA, oh, see, yeah, I did it, but they signed the NDA, so we're not. I don't think that would hold up in court. But
it has, and it scares people. Oh yeah,
just to clarify, so I get abused, I sign an NDA, and then I take them to court. I get in trouble for breaking the NDA.
That's the problem.
Someone just has a bad lawyer. Then that's asinine.
A lot of it's asinine, actually, and a lot of it is designed actually to protect the people in positions of power, because it's the people in positions of power who write the damn laws. Everybody's protecting their own at the expense of the victims.
All right. Anyone listening to this, I'm not a lawyer, but break your NDA and make noise. Screw that.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing the amount of just, first of all, vitriol out there for women who do come forward. And second of all, like legal troubles. The fact that a lot of people can't name their perpetrator in, say, a state like Pennsylvania, because the perpetrator can then turn around and sue them for libel because of the statute of limitation. It's like victim blaming to the nth degree.
Yeah. We're a hell of a species, aren't we?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to do something about it. And I got to start with my little world.
So what's some progress that you've seen along the way? Obviously, like the statute of limitations going away in certain areas, but is there any glimmer of hope, or are we just circling the drain right now?
I think it takes a while for the, I guess, zeitgeist to sort of move in that direction. And it did for a while in 2018, 2019. There's a lot of Me Too stuff happening. And then died down a little bit again. And so that's what, I mean, I want to keep the pressure on. And I can't keep the pressure on various state capitals or something like that. But I certainly can in my little field, because I'm well enough known in this field to be able to say, hey, you should get an investigation into this man, and have people listen to me, and then have a whole bunch of people put pressure on that institution. So that's the kind of thing I can do. And that's the kind of thing I plan to do.
Oh, excellent. Oh, geez, the Me Too. Never mind. That's a whole different thing. I was thinking, like, with the Me Too movement, it was gaining traction. And I think like someone that was within the Me Too movement turned out to be an abuser. And then so everyone's, oh, that one person right there, therefore we can wipe our hands with the whole thing. It's like, the idea should live beyond that. You can't.
The other thing is, it's uncomfortable to talk about for Joe Q public. This is something that people don't want to sit around and talk about child abuse or abuse of any kind. And that's the problem, is that it's, in a weird way, it's been shoved away for so long. Also, and not talked about. And so that's another thing I'm doing, is I hope making it okay to come out with it, to talk about this.
But what's also horrifying to consider, and is probably likely, is how many people have a personal interest to not have this talked about. Like once this is blown wide open, it's like just half the people on the planet are guilty. And it was like, oh yeah, we need to shut this down. We got to go in good.
I don't know about half the people, but whenever people come at me, like the trolls and everything online or something like that, my first answer is, what's in your closet? Why would you be upset about this? There is something wrong with anyone who is upset about people trying to end child sexual abuse in any field.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, as much as I hate to, I guess we got to wrap this up. But we'll end up on something kind of light. I just wanted to get some film recommendations from you. And since you're a musician, kind of some music recommendation. Just a movie that's either personal to you, or this one's really good and not a lot of people talk about it. And then a band or an artist or a song along the same lines.
Let's see. People do talk about it. And especially since last week, they have been talking about it a lot. But I was a huge Catherine O'Hara fan, and I just think Schitt's Creek was one of the greatest 4 seasons of anything ever. And I know that's not a movie. It's not what you're asking for, but
it counts. It's light and screens flashing and stuff.
It is. And it's also, I'm Canadian, and it's very Canadian. And it's such a kind of, it's hard to come away. I mean, I've watched all seasons maybe 5-6 times now, and I always come away just like loving the characters so much. And it's the opposite of dark. It's such a great show with so much humanity and soul. So I think that's pretty cool. I have actually, during COVID, one of the things I did was learn a lot about Cuban music. And I have a friend, they're the only female fronted Afro-Cuban band out there. They're called Okan. And they're both vocalists. One of them plays violin, the other is percussion. And I think they're absolutely fantastic musicians. And their songwriting and their energy is infectious. It's really great.
Excellent.
OKAN. Yeah.
OKAN?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okan.
Lara, it's been great talking to you.
You're likewise.
You're wonderful and interesting as your documentary. And I wish you all the success, and I cannot wait for this this needs to come out on physical media, because this would be a wonderful thing. Abuser, buy the DVD and just leave it on their doorstep. And hey, I know. And now you know that I know. So
that's a great idea. I might do that. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
But yeah, great talking to you, and congratulations. And I hope this thing's a success because it needs to be.
Me too. Thanks a lot. Thanks for bringing it out to your folk.
All right, guys, I'm back. Diabolic movie is in select theaters, and it's on demand February 20th. And here's a synopsis for this film. It's directed by Daniel J. Phillips. I actually interviewed him today, and that interview will be up on our YouTubes. I'm going to put on Deepest Dream and also on my other podcast, Find Your Film, all that stuff. But right now, for this moment, in the present, is my review of Diabolic. I like doing this podcast interview because I'm not looking straight at the camera. It's just me and my microphone, and I'm looking at the email, and I can cheat, and I can read, and I can just do an off-the-cuff review of Diabolic. Here is an official plot synopsis for the film. Quote, "A woman must return to the fundamentalist compound where she was raised after she is haunted by the vengeful spirit of a cursed witch." Again, directed by Daniel Phillips. This woman is played by Elizabeth Cullen, and she, as director Daniel J. Phillips says, she is the best part of Diabolic. It's just a very showy, interesting performance, and I'm going to get to that pretty much spoiler-free on why because a part of this movie is in flashback, and then there is just a lot of varied performances that Elizabeth Cullen has to give in Diabolic. If you check out the trailer, it's a very interesting performance from Elizabeth Cullen as Elise. Elise is now grown up. She is with seemingly in a happy relationship with this guy named Adam, played by John Kim. But the problem is Elise is suffering from trauma in the past. She doesn't remember her childhood that much. And when she goes in, sometimes she'll go in a daze. And when she goes in this daze, she commits violent acts or inexplicable actions. Ultimately, what Elise is advised to do is to return to the scene of her crime, which is that fundamentalist religion that she used to belong to, and that is the Mormons. And what's interesting is they believe that the honest cure for her suffering would be to actually go back and to the site of her trauma. And she does go back with her boyfriend and another friend, close friend of theirs, and she tries to figure out what's going on with her past. How has her past pretty much influenced her present? And that's really all I can say about what happens. A lot of the movie, what's interesting, it's set in Utah, right? But it was shot in, I believe, South Australia. So it's Australia doubling for Utah because Utah Mormonism and all that stuff. So very interesting stuff. And it centers on the FLDS, which is the Fundamental Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And this is not the witch part, but the movie is inspired by a true story. And one of the people who receives a story credit on Diabolic is Tisha Madsen. And she recounted to Daniel a lot of the story in Diabolic comes straight from her life. And yeah, I would love to hear the specifics of her life regarding her experiences of being a Mormon and her childhood, etc. But I don't know what else I can say. When Elise goes back and she is put in a therapy session by a couple of the leading Mormons of the area, there's a mother and son, and they have a very interesting dynamic. They are part of this FLDS community, and they try to help Elise just get back to a saner mental healthy type of state. And they do something to her, and ultimately what happens is, for a second, she feels better, and it's only for a second, right? Because this is a horror thriller. And then what happens for the rest of the narrative is Elise gets to really find out why is she acting in a certain way. One of the things about her flashbacks is Elise starts to remember a friendship she had with another girl when they were young, and that girl her name is Clara, and Clara is played by Luca Asta Sardellis. So a lot of the flashbacks is Elise and Clara's friendship, burgeoning friendship, and possibly a romantic union between the two. Who knows where that will lead? So while Elise's understanding about her possible relationship with Clara in the past, she is trying to figure out how does that apply to her in the present regarding her relationship with Adam, again played by actor John Kim. I would like to say this movie is a slow burn, but the opening act where we see Elise as a youth getting drowned in, not, she doesn't get completely drowned because she's alive, but her face is and body is ultimately submerged in water in some religious practice from this religious group, right? And it's very terrifying. And there are a couple of terrifying scenes throughout the movie until you get to the third act. The movie's 96 minutes. The third act is absolutely bonkers and totally worth it. And it really goes out there. It's an exploration or a critique, obviously, of this fundamental Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, on one hand, right? It's that account. So that's the realistic account. But the witch part is a genreified aspect of Diabolic. And that comes to bear within the final 10 minutes of the story. And it's really, in my opinion, worth a watch just for those 10 minutes. Visually, it's an arresting movie as well. I don't know how much this movie, I'm assuming it's an indie budget. It wasn't made for a lot of money, but filmmaker Daniel J. Phillips has a very good command of his compositions. A lot of the movie takes place in the dark, but the movie, thankfully, is not murky. It's just sometimes movies, when they're shot in the dark, you can't see a darn thing, and it's very frustrating. Here, the movie is shot in the dark, but it adds to the overall ambiance and the depth to the film. I forgot to ask Daniel J. Phillips about the music design. The sound design, music, and the music in this is very arresting as well. Some may say it might be a little bit too much, but I think for this genre, a little bit too much is perfect, especially in certain moments, certain notes of this film when it goes seemingly overboard. I think it just really works within the tone of Diabolic. At 96 minutes, it wasn't a slog. Sometimes with a slow burn, you go, oh my gosh, let's get to the scary scene. But I didn't feel that way. I was really interested in learning more about this religious community, about possibly a witch being there in the midst. And then we get to the inevitable ending, which, in my opinion, really goes for it. And it's an uncompromising final act, which I thoroughly appreciated. Going back to Elizabeth Cullen, I think she was cast in the upcoming Evil Dead film. And let me look, it's directed by Francis Gallioppi. I believe that's his name. I'm mispronouncing his name. It's Untitled Evil Dead. And yeah, Francis Gallioppi. And if you don't know the name, Francis Gallioppi is the filmmaker behind the 2023 excellent film, The Last Stop in Yuma County. So Elizabeth Cullen, who is the lead in Diabolic, is in the upcoming Untitled Evil Dead film. So that should even bump her up even more. But this movie, Diabolic, is really centers on her performance, and she gives a great layered performance as Elise. And it's just mesmerizing to watch her. There's a lot of close-ups, and she sells the fear and the scare and a lot of other things, which I won't give away. There's just a lot of stuff within her performance that I really enjoyed. And again, when I interviewed the director, Daniel J. Phillips, he said she's the best part of the movie. I will agree with that, but I also really loved the way the story was executed. So overall, Diabolic, first-rate horror thriller, a slow burn that is not a slog, excellent lead performance, and a wackadoodle 10-minute just out there final act, which I ate up. I really ate up, and I really loved. So my rating for Diabolic, 4 stars. It's in theaters Friday, February 6th. And then, if you want, you can catch it on demand February 20th. I might have Bruce and Eric. I might ask if they can have a screener link and see the movie. So when it's on demand, we can cover Diabolic as well. I hope this movie catches on. I believe it's won maybe an award or two, this Australian film, not stateside, but outside of the US, it's done well. And yeah, here again, directed by Daniel J. Phillips and starring Elizabeth Cullen, John Harlan Kim, and Mia Chalice. Diabolic is a FLDS religious horror that follows a woman seeking a cure and becomes the target of a vengeful witch's spirit. Yes, and it gets really diabolic to sound like a corny dad. And yeah, we'd love to hear what you think of this movie when it hits theaters February 13th. I think a lot of you might give it a chance when it comes out on demand February 20th. And that is Diabolic. Would love to hear what you think of that movie. Finally, I'm going to actually share what movies we're covering this week on CinemAddicts. Let me go to my Google Doc right now, see who's done what. I have done Diabolic. I'm not going to mention, I'll mention it on this week's show just a little bit, but let's go to episode 3. Okay, that's episode 329. I apologize. I'm trying to look for the Google Doc, but there are a lot of movies that we are covering this week, and there are a lot of movies that we don't get to cover because there's only 3 of us. And look, right now, there's a movie called The Arborist, which was seen by Bruce, so we're going to cover that movie. A film called Jimpa, Jimpa. Eric saw that. There's another movie called The President's Cake, which is getting a ton of critical acclaim, and I believe Bruce is in the middle of watching it as we speak, this day being Tuesday. He's going to record his cinematic on Thursday morning. And then we also got the links for the 4K restoration of the Michael Almeretta film, Naja. Eric has seen he's seen the movie Twisted, and it's a horror thriller. And I believe he's interviewing Darren Lynn Bousman on Wednesday. So we're going to have that interview as well on CinemAddicts. And I covered another movie called Bite, Bight, which is an interesting erotic relationship thriller drama, which I'll talk about on CinemAddicts. And that's 6 movies. It's just a lot. And there's so much more to cover that we miss on a given week. And I really hate that we can't cover 20 movies a week. I wish we could give you so many options, but at least these are movies that are under the radar and are indie driven and hopefully might be some alternate viewing for you on the week starting Friday, February 6, 2026. Again, Eric and I will start recording. We'll record CinemAddicts on Thursday and we'll upload it on the CinemAddicts audio feed on Friday. So you'll have our reviews of these 6 aforementioned movies. And at least right now, as a primer for the rest of the week, you have my review of Diabolic. And if you're in Santa Barbara, of course, more importantly, you can check out Dear Lara, which again is directed by Lara St. You guys take care and talk to you soon. Thanks again for supporting CinemAddicts.